Hello everybody. Today we are going to go through and do a 1 hour mix. So I'm going to pull up a countdown timer. I'm going to set this for 1 hour. I'm going to talk you through very quickly what the basic setup what the basic setup for today is. We need to just show you what the session is, get you basically familiar with what we're going to do, but then we're going to time it and we're going to go from our session setup from raw files all the way through to our mastered version ready for you to upload to SoundCloud or something like that. We're working with a track that sounds pretty nice to start with, which is always something that will help speed this process up. But as we go through today, hopefully you'll get an understanding of what's necessary to do in your mix and what's not really as important, but just kind of can make it those extra little steps better. So this is a bass mix, but I'll give you an idea of how quickly we're moving. So we have a session here. I went onto Cambridge MT, the multi-tracks library that they have there, and I found this track that I liked by Colton Benjamin called Can't Let You Go. You can see here we've got a selection of tracks and they're all numbered, which is really lovely because that means that they're going to come into our session fine. If I was working on this as my own process, I might go through some different stages of importing the files, but I'll show you the base version. So educational purposes only, not commercial. Cool, it's not what we're doing. And it is 24-bit 44.1, which is what I've loaded this session as. So that's the only stuff I've done before we got here. Tempo is 84. That could be useful later. We'll see if we need that information. But if we select the first one here, scroll up to here, we can either just straight up drag them into our tracks list, or we can do it the traditional way, which will allow us to copy them into our session. So my multi-tracks are all in this nice little folder here. I go here, change it to their name, and then select the first one, scroll down to the end, select them. If I hit add, it will add them to my session, but the files will all stay in their original location. If I hit copy, it'll create a duplicate of all of those in my Pro Tools session that I've created for this. So for me today, I just need to hit add. But for you, if you're backing up your files, it's a really smart thing if you're going to be moving it from computer to computer. So we hit done, new track for sure. Dun, 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 dun. Watch them all come in. Excellent. Okay, so we have a session. Zoom out a little bit here. This looks like we have audio on all of these files, even though these ones are a little bit quiet and only play every now and again. We're going to start the timer and we're going to do everything on the clock. So we're going to try and do this as fast as we can. So let's go. Okay, so with this session, the way that I would approach this first is just play it back for a couple of seconds. I've just dropped my cursor somewhere in the middle where everything seems to be playing. We'll test it, see what it sounds like. It's probably going to be a little bit louder, but we'll drop the level as we go through. Ooh, croony. I'm going to jump down here and hear these a little bit. I'm just trying to pick up to grab those kids from your face. We got some nice stuff going on in here. Okay, so very quickly, we're going to slam through each of the tracks and just make sure that they are what they say they are. Because you never know what someone's labeled something as, and we want to know that we understand the track properly. So to do that, I want to be able to go through and solo all of my tracks. Now you see with my solo at the moment, it's going through and cancelling the previous solo. If you want that mode, which is way faster for what we're doing right now, we are using the XOR mode, which means cancel previous solo. If it's on latch, which is what it's normally on, it'll do this, which is annoying, so we don't want that. The other thing I have on here is pre-fader metering, which means when I hit play, we're going to see levels coming up, right? Even though when we pull our faders all the way down, we won't see we won't hear anything. We'll be able to see that there's sound on that track. That's really useful for our speed mixing, so just keep that in the back of your mind. Okay, so is this a kick? Yes, it is. Great. Rim shot. Side of your snare. Sure is. Great. Hi-hat. Let's skip the snare because there was nothing on it a second ago. That's a hi-hat. That's a snare. Overheads, top of my drum kit. Yep. Now the toms we'll come back to. Room mic. Ooh. Nice. Okay, bass. Very clean, fully DI'd. Electric guitar. Sounds like a guitar. There we go. Cool. We got a little break section now. Rhodes. That'll be an organ. This is a brand and type of organ. Okay, so we missed a couple of parts up here. There was these toms. I'm just going to zoom in. Normally toms will come in a tom roll like that. Do. Soloed these guys. Yep. And I'm assuming this one's just somewhere in between. Yep. Great. Okay. Toms are toms. And it looks like whoever had this session before us has already cleaned up the silent sections of the track. That means we're not going to need to do that ourselves, and we're not going to need to use gating. If this was your track and you recorded it raw, there's probably a bit more processing you're going to need to do to the drums than what we're doing in today's session. But either way, we'll still do some stuff to the drums. Okay, we got up to electric guitar and then we didn't hear this one. Great, sounds like a solo. We got these two that seem to play at the same time, so I'm going to solo them together. They look like pretty similar waveforms. What does it do? Ooh, really tasty. So what's the difference between them? Okay, so we got a lower one, we got a higher one. We're probably going to work with these as, like, they're going to come in together, so we'll need to think about that when we're processing them. Nice, love it. And then this electric guitar only comes in all the way down at the end. See, we got just a little bit down at the end. What's it sound like? Sounds like guitar. Okay, nothing mislabeled here. Saxophone and trombone. Yep, sounds like it. Lead vocals.
I could keep waiting for better days to come.
Okay, so we got some double tracking on our lead vocals. We got some other lead vocal sections.
I would never let you go, babe.
Looks like these are the choruses.
I would never let you go.
Yep, same waveform down here.
I would never let you go.
Great, okay. So this is our choruses, this is our verses. Cool. We probably don't need to do much different between them, but if you wanted to, they're already on nice separate tracks for you. And backing vocals.
I can't let go.
Ooh. What do these sound like individually?
I can't let go.
Yeah.
I can't let go.
Yep.
I can't let go.
Ooh, and then our bassy one. Okay, so all of these vocals are probably going to get played back.
You go, baby.
Together. Nice. Okay, so everything in here is what it says it is. Cool. Okay, now we move on. So for me to set up my session, a couple of things I would do. One, I'm going to highlight all of it. I'm going to highlight all these guys. So I select one track, hold down shift, move down to the other end. They're all selected. You could also do it up here, whatever. And now I'm going to hit Command G and make a group. And this is going to be, we already have an all group, so you could call it all 2, or you could call it everything, doesn't really matter. I make up a different name every time. But this is for me to be able to grab all these tracks and whoop, drag everything down to the bottom. Now, Rose, why wouldn't you just use the all group that's already created? So that's a great question. I'm going to hold Command Shift N, and I'm going to create a Command Shift N, hold it down. I'm going to just show you how I did that again. Command Shift N, holding down Command, I press my sideways arrow to make a stereo, and then I move down with my down arrow still holding down Command until I get my master fader. Great. Now I have a master fader. When we were playing back our mix before, it was coming through at peaking 2 dBs over. That's no good. Your mix is going to sound like trash if it's peaking. So we want to be aware of that. Now, with this group, I can change everything but keep my master at 0. So we are going to do a speedy mix. Now, based on what we heard before, I really like the sound of the drums, the room sounds for the drums, and actually all of the drums actually sound pretty good. So I'm going to start by turning my drum room and overhead levels up, and then I'm going to balance in what I can't hear enough of with my close mics. Once I've done that, I'm going to make my way through, and whenever I see the lights peaking up with my pre-fader metering, when I can see that there's something playing on that track, I'm going to start turning level up until I find a spot where it sits nicely. So I'm just going to quickly speed through this process, and if there's anything I need to stop and tell you about, I will. So you better start from where the song actually starts. My snare, I just want to point out, my kick and my snare, it's always the biggest driving part of your song. I'm generally getting it for most poppy, rocky kind of songs so that it feels like they're relatively even, like they're both kind of like punching at you at the same time. So if you wanted to have more of a groove, it'd be like boom, boom, pa, boom, boom, pa. But if you want it to be pretty just standard, boom, boom, pa, boom, boom, pa. So it's like got even weight behind it. So that's all I'm listening for. I'm going to drop a little bit further in. Just going to turn these up. And we'll see what their levels are like later.
Someday I'll take this blue stepping over my face.
Groovy song. Alright, I've just tweaked a couple of those as I went forward, but I need to find a section where I'm hearing sax, trombone, this electric guitar, my toms because I need to check their levels, and then these lead vocals down here. So I'm just going to skip to this part because I know that's where my
I would never let you go, baby. I would never let you go. I would never let you go, baby.
Okay, now if our levels start getting loud on our master right now, that's okay. We're going to fix that in a second.
I would never let you go. I can't go.
Nice, close enough for now. Let me find a spot where this saxophone and
I would never let you go. I can't go. I would never let you go. I would never let you go. I would never let you go. Next time I gotta go.
yeah, close enough. And then this electric guitar.
I would never let you go. I can't go. I would never let you go.
Find one of these little tom rolls, like that one. Because they're so clean, I don't actually have to worry about turning them up and bringing up background noise so much, because somebody else has already done that job for us. That'd be a job we'd have to do here, but we're good. Cool. Now, these are all pan center, but I'm hearing those drums, and if you're listening to this in stereo and I'm recording it correctly, you should hear it going left to right. That's because of these overheads and rooms. Right? So this has been recorded in drummer's perspective, which means that I have from my left to my right. Based on that, if you wanted to mix from audience perspective, you would need to grab these pan pots and flip them the other way, and then it will go the other way. And go back the other way. So I like mixing from drummer's perspective, so I'm going to keep these where they are. But what I need to do is take these toms and match them to where they live in this track. Now, I'm not going to do a whole heap of panning right up front because I like to mix in mainly mono, but I know I'm going to have to do this at some stage anyway, so let's just do it. This guy's starting over here. That guy's pretty much in the middle. Sounds like with them. Yeah, that's working pretty well. I just need to find that third tom because we're not listening to it right now. There we go. There's a new one. It's a little bit over the side. Fun tip. If you hold down shift and spacebar, it'll play in half speed. Slows it down, allows us to hear it a little bit clearer. Now if I just hit spacebar, I'm back to normal. Cool! Okay, so just this setup, getting a rough balance. 15 minutes. Okay, let's power through. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the start of the song. We're going to play it back and we're going to listen for the first thing that sucks. What sucks? What can't we hear? What sounds muddy and gross? And then we fix it. If we hear little levels we need to tweak, we can do that too.
Stand by your side.
There's our first problem. When that vocal comes in, not only does it feel kind of flat and a bit boring, but we start to lose some of the quieter words. Let's listen again.
Even though I never stand by your side.
Your side. It kind of drops away behind the mix. I'm sure if we find some even quieter words.
For better days to come.
Days to come. The calm is kind of lost in there as well. So what we need to do is start doing some processing on our vocals. Now, visually, I can't deal with a standard session, so I'm going to quickly slap some color on these things. Those are all my drums. My bass is a different color. My electric guitars are something else. I don't care about the color so long as they're different to the thing beside them. That's all I'm interested in. Cool. Now I got a few tracks of lead vocals here. Let's do something real quick to fix them. We established before this was the verses and this is the choruses. I'm not planning on doing any fancy processing for separate tracks, so I'm gonna highlight all of my vocals. I'm gonna hit B because I have this little button on, which means my single key shortcuts will work. And then I'm gonna get it. I'm going to drag it very carefully without moving it up or down down in my session. So now it'll play back just on these tracks. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing here. I'm going to grab these two, hit B for break. I'm going to drag them down. And now
I'll be back in a blink of an eye.
They're all on one track or two tracks. So I'm going to grab these two tracks and say goodbye. Don't care that there's audio on you. You're dead audio anyway, so it doesn't matter. Okay, now I'm going to highlight this and I'm going to hit F for fade, which means it'll put a nice tiny little fade in between all of them. And we're good to get onto the actual mixing part. So now I only have 2 lead vocals. So let's give these a pretty color that's different to everything else. And our backing vocals, ugh, that's a gross color. Beautiful. Okay. So for my vocals, I don't need to process each of these separately. So I'm going to create not 21. I'm going to create 1 mono auxiliary track, and then I'm going to hold down Command and Shift and the down arrow, and then I have the option to create multiple different types of tracks, and I'm going to create 1 stereo auxiliary. Now, why 1 mono and 1 stereo? Well, my lead vocals, generally, I want to sit pretty much dead center of my mix. So this is going to be my lead vocal, I guess, master or subgroup. And I'm going to take both of these tracks. I'm going to hold down Option Shift, and I'm going to send them into a singular mono bus, which means that they're no longer coming out of here. If I play it back, there's nothing. So I'm going to bring them in here. And now, oh, there would have been nothing before because I wasn't right.
Even though I never stand by your side.
They're all coming through that guy. And I'm going to do exactly the same for my backing vocals. So hold down Shift, select all of them, Option Shift to apply the same setting. Now these ones I do want to pan, so they're going to go out to different buses. And with these different buses, now they're going to come in on bus 3 and 4. And
even though I never stand by you,
we need to hear where they
I would never let you go. I can't let go.
Great. So when we put some processing on this, I'm going to hit solo isolate. So that means that when I solo these tracks here, they're going to come through into this one. And let's do some basic processing, right? Hopefully you know
I
what
would
an
never
EQ
let-
is. Changing our frequencies, making it a bit cleaner. I'm going to take any unnecessary bass out. So I'm going to roll this up.
I would
until,
never let you go, baby.
it'll go real filtery up there, but
I would never let you go.
I mean, I'm not really even hearing it down here.
I would never let you go. I would never let you go.
Great. Let's have a look around the mid-range, the troublesome mid-range, and see if there's any gross low frequencies down here.
I would never let you go, baby.
Out there. Let's
I would
take
never
out.
let you go.
Now, we shouldn't be dramatically changing the sound right now.
But this time I gotta go.
I'm just cleaning it up a little bit. We also need to... I feel like I heard a little S in here, like a T-S-y thing in here before.
I'm just trying to pick up the pace.
I'm going to put a compressor on. We'll hear what it sounds like, but I'm going to guarantee you we're going to need to put a de-esser on this as well. So I'm going to use the Pro compressor. This Pro compressor is if you have the Pro Tools subscription and you pay for the plugin on top of that, this will come as part of that package. It's not stock standard, but it's practically stock standard. Now, to set my compressor, the easiest and quickest way of doing this is I'm going to look for a quiet part in my audio. That looks like a real quiet word.
You go.
Maybe this one.
This time I gotta go.
That go is quiet.
Go.
Great.
Go.
So what I want
go,
is my threshold pretty much where it is right now. I don't want to turn that word down. My threshold says that anything above it I'm turning down and anything below it I'm leaving alone. I don't need to turn that word down, and that's what my compressor does.
Go.
So that's fine. But what should happen now is these louder words
I would never let you go.
are going over, and we can see some gain reduction. Now, for a vocal, I'm normally setting a ratio of somewhere between 4:1 to 6:1, somewhere around that kind of mark. So let's just try it in here. This is not a super crazy vocal, so it shouldn't need too much.
I would never let you go. I would never let you go.
Okay, now, with this little gain reduction, it's the only other thing that we're really keeping an eye on. how fast it's moving and whether it's following the words.
I would never let you go.
I would never let you go. It's doing all the little syllables of the word separately. I want it to hold the word for a bit longer. So I'm going to increase the release time.
I would never let you go. I would never let you go. I would never let you go. I would never let you go.
That's about half a second. That's kind of makes sense. And my attack time, you can like slam it right up front, or you can give it a little bit of extra space at the start. That means that when the sound very first goes over, is it going to let that part go through and then start compressing, or is it going to do it as soon as it goes over?
To grab those tears from your face, darling.
Great. So in some of these sections here, we're applying,
I would never let you go.
on average, about 6 dBs of gain reduction, which means we're turning the whole, all these loud parts down by 6 dB. That's what your makeup gain's for. Turn it back up to its original volume.
I would never let you go. I would never let you. I would never let you.
Great.
Take this blue stepping over my face.
Those S's aren't like crazy bad right now, but they're not good.
Take this blue stepping over my face.
They're annoying me. I'm going to give it a little bit more.
Take this blue stepping over my face. I'm just trying to pick up the pace.
Yeah, pick up the pace. Alright, so let's put on the stock standard Pro Tools De-Esser. Now, to do this, your De-Esser can turn down from 500 Hertz to 16K. I don't want that. So I'm going to turn my high frequencies only on, which means it's only turning down high frequencies. Good. That's what it's for.
I'll take this blue stepping over my.
Now to listen, it's showing us what frequency area we've focused in on. So it's going to show us where the S's are if we sweep it around. Kind of around this area. I think the audio sample I've selected, like the word is not the most S-y. I'm going to turn it down a bit. Take listen off.
The sun for everyone. This dark night erase the sun for everyone.
Cool. It's pretty good.
This dark night erase the sun for everyone. I'll be back in a blink of an eye.
Cause baby. Yeah. Alright, we're making some difference. Now, our backing vocals are pretty dang similar. We're peaking again over here. We can fix that. But let's focus on our vocals just for 1 second, then we'll come back. So, remember, all of our backing vocals are going through this auxiliary. The same vocalist. So I'm just going to hold down Option and drag and drop each of these plugins. I'm going to need to tweak them a little bit, but that's pretty much it.
I can't let go. Let you go. I can't let go.
Nice. I'm just going to look at this EQ. I'm probably going to roll this back a little bit because I think there's some nicer bassier frequencies.
I can't let go. I can't let go.
Yeah, just getting rid of any junk that doesn't exist there.
I can't let go.
Great. That's enough for now. Let's fix our levels. So, remember how I made that group without the master? Yeah. Now I can grab this and turn it down. The only issue, see how it's not adjusting those lead vocal masters? Is that an issue? Not really. It's only an issue for my compressor, because my compressor's levels are going to get adjusted a little bit now because I forgot to do this before. But if I turn these all the way down, you'll hear it's turning the vocals down as well because it's turning their pre-send. This is before it gets into here. So if we turn this down, not as much is getting in there. So it's actually not that big of a deal. Look at that. Healthy, nice levels. I am running on PPM digital, which is essentially going to show me all the peaks coming. Yeah, chill. Okay, so what we need to do to fix this, we have to get some time-based effects on this. So I'm going to create a stereo aux track. I didn't even name this one before. Back Vox Master. This is going to be my vocal reverb. And to get the sound coming into here, remember how we sent these guys into something? Now they're all going to one spot, so I can be lazy and just take the sound from here. I'm going to hold down Option, which is going to click that up to 0, and I'm going to keep holding down Option and drag this across, and it's going to have the same settings. So these are going to bus 5 and 6. My vocal reverb should be getting its signal from 5 and 6. And now if I play back, my vocal is going to be real loud because I've doubled.
You go, I can't let go.
But if I put a reverb on here,
You go, I can't let go.
yeah. I really like church reverb.
You go, I can't let go.
It's kind of like a it's kind of like a gospel-y-ish track. So a couple of things. It doesn't need to be that long. I don't need a fucking 9-second reverb on here.
You go, I can't let go. I would never let you go.
Tame it back a little bit. That echoey effect is the pre-delay. You think if you walk into a church versus walking into this room right now, the sound for me hits this little wall in front of me and bounces straight back. If I'm in a church, it has to travel all the way to the other end and then all the other way back to me. So it takes longer, and that's what this pre-delay is. I don't really want that.
You go, I can't let go. I would never let you go.
And then this high frequency cut is just like an EQ. If I just put a EQ on here just purely so I can show you very quickly. The high frequency cut part is doing this, and you're just choosing what frequency you want to select it at. Or the filter is doing this and completely eradicating those frequencies. Or you can create like a combo of both if you want to. You could do something like that, create a funky little curve. I want some more high frequency.
You go, I can't let go. I would never let you go. I would never let you go.
Yeah, I like that. Cool, done. Only difference, my backing vocals can sound really far away, so I want a good amount of them. But my lead vocals should sound closer to me, so they should have less reverb. So hopefully...
You go, I can't let go. I would never let you go. I would never let you go. I would let you go, I can't let go.
Cool. I want to give them a little bit more level.
You go, I can't let go.
Great. It's softened up a little bit. Okay, what else do we need to do? Do the same thing as we did before. Drop into our mix. Hear what sucks.
Even though I never stand by your side, I never ask how your day went by.
My drums cannot come up again now.
I wouldn't know how to make it right.
Not everything.
Where all that came with time. I'm leaving, but I'll be back someday.
Some more bass. The other thing, if you feel like you're turning your kick and your bass up more and their faders look way louder than the others, could be two things. One, maybe you need to turn your headphones up because we hear bass frequencies only when they get to a certain loudness, or maybe it literally just is that and you need to give them a bit more so we can hear them properly. It's okay. I want this part to hit so much harder. Maybe not that hard, but a bit harder.
Even though I never stand by your side, I never ask how your day went by. I wouldn't know how to make it right. Where all that came with time.
I feel like I want to compress a little bit heavier. Let me bring that threshold down a touch.
even though I never stand by your side.
That's the first verse section.
I never ask how your day went by.
Because we've only got this part singing once, whereas all these others have double, so they're louder.
I would never let you go. I would never let you go. I would never let you go. But this time I gotta go. Come. This dark night erase the sun for everyone.
That's better. Okay. Let's have a look at our drums. I'm going to scroll the way down to my drums. Now, with my drums, a couple of things. One, they already sound pretty nice.
This dark night.
I feel like that kick, and essentially anything that doesn't need all its frequencies, we're going to clean up. So, this kick, let's have a listen to this. I think it's pretty solid. We just need to tweak it a tiny bit. Yeah, it's good. It's a good kick. If your kick isn't super bassy, that's not a bad thing. Your bass should be bassy. Okay. He doesn't have anything going on in those subs. Or maybe he does. I got headphones on. That's the other thing. Alright, let's hear where it's living. Alright, there's some nice frequencies going on down here. I don't want to give it too much. Just a little boost. A little helping hand. What's going on up in this mud range? Does it sound like a cardboard box up here? Yep. Is that a bad thing? In context. Minor tweaks, right? We're just taking out stuff that it doesn't need. I'm not going to shelve out all the highs because there's stuff we need up there. We need that click to actually make it cut through. Cool. Okay, so that's all right. Let's have a look at bass. Make sure that these two can work together. It's a bit boring. Let's fix that. Okay, let's see where it lives. No, not by that. Why does it sound pretty? Real Arctic Monkeys-y around this area. It's really popping out in that area. What's that? About 120. Cool. See if there's any trash up here it doesn't need. String slides. You want to flee Chili Peppers bass, play around up in this area. String slappy sounds. Look, he's okay. I'm going to look at what the really... See, this bass sounds pretty and nice, right? But remember, I'm going to click this little red button so I can open both my kick and my bass at the same time. I boosted 50 hertz in my kick. So therefore, I do not want that in my bass because they should work in harmony. And if they're in the same frequency area, they're competing. Maybe I also find the little 120 point. Oh, it only goes to 125 with this controller because I've chosen the wrong ones. Whatever. We've got a bit more space for each other as opposed to... It's only minor, right? And we're only listening to them in isolation. But we're going to do some more fancy tricks to kind of make them pop out a little bit more. Two things that we want to talk about. One, side chaining. The other, parallel compression. Is what's going to make our drums pop out a little bit more. Let's do a time check. 20 minutes. Oh my god. Okay, let's move fast. So, for my bass, oh my goodness, I'm going to put on a compressor limiter. In this compressor limiter, I am going to say, hey, instead of compressing the sound that's on your track, look at another one. So I'm going to take this bass. We didn't end up using channel 2 before. So I'm going to turn the level up, and I'm going to say, send it pre-fader. Doesn't need to be EQ'd, just needs to be a clean sound. It's going to come over here, and on my bass, I'm going to say, hey, can you listen to bus 2 and use the signal on that to set your settings? So now, it's moving with the kick. So what's the kick sound like? It's real fast, it's got a fast attack. Goes away pretty quickly as well. So we're creating a little carved out space for our kick drum to come through. And the spot that stops. We got a little gap for it. The other thing that we're going to do, all these boosts are from when I was running around with that EQ. The other thing I want to do is I'm going to create a stereo auxiliary, and with this stereo auxiliary, this is going to be my parallel compression for my drums. And with this parallel compression for my drums, I am going to take these overheads and this drum room, because they sound real nice, and I'm going to take a split of them out to a bus, let's say bus 7 and 8. I'm going to send them pre-fader. I haven't done any processing to them, but in case I do, I'm going to hit Option to snap the level up to 0, and I'm going to say follow main panning. If you choose to like flip the panning around down here, it won't automatically do it up here unless you tell it to. So you don't want your parallel compression to have a different panning to what your raw track has. So fix that. They're going to bus 7 and 8. This is going to get its sound from, surprise, bus 7 and 8. And now we've doubled it. What we're going to do is put a compressor on here and essentially destroy it. So let's put a compressor on. Now this is a thing I use for like grungy rock recordings more than soul-y kind of things, but I want to do it to these drums. I want to compress pretty heavily. Pretty fast on and off. And because these are being sent pre-fader, listen to this one by itself. When your drums play, they should be transient. They should be loud parts and then get quiet. If they don't do that and they're all flat, they sound dead. This is much better, but we can blend them. So we have a really compressed version and then we have a dry version to blend together. The idea with this is that I'm keeping the transient information from these original raw tracks, and then I'm bringing up all the cymbals and all the weird stuff in the background with this heavily compressed version. Hear all that junk it's bringing up? All right. So now, back in context in my mix, is sit without it.
I would never let you go.
Without it.
I would never let you go. I would never let you go.
Wicked. All right, let's do a quick fix on these guitars because we still have to master it. So let's go. Okay. So with this, with my guitars, same deal. They don't need all that extra bass.
I can't let go.
Take out gross stuff. That's fine. I'm gonna hold down Option, copy paste that to my next guy. Listen to it, click it on it. Kind of like the roomy bassiness in this one. Let's move on to this electric guitar, which is part of that little part that only plays for a section. So we'll swap back to this view so we can highlight. Oh my goodness. Now I'm feeling the time crunch. Okay. It doesn't really need that bass, but this one down here is the more bassy one, so maybe it will. Yeah, for sure. So it got some gross stuff up there. Okay, what do these guitars sound like now? Now this lead guitar, I'm going to steal... Actually, no, I'm just going to put a compressor on it. We got a compressor. And I'm just going to lightly compress it. Just so that it pops out a little more. And actually, to give it some more headroom, because it's really loud, it keeps going all the way up to 0. I'm just going to turn the clip down a little bit, just so I have a bit more headroom to work with here. It's going to make it quieter, but we'll fix that. Oh my goodness, just play. Yeah, those long notes. I want it to hear them.
Even though I never stand by your side, I never ask how your day went by. I wouldn't know how to make it right. Where all that came with time. I'm leaving, but I'll be back someday. I'll take this blue stepping over my face. I'm just trying to pick up the pace, to grab those tears from your face. Darling, I would never let you go. I can't let go. I would never let you go. I would never let you go. I would never let you go. But this time
Okay, all I gotta do is just pan these guitars. So this one plays kind of the whole way through. And so does my electric lead. I'm gonna get my lead in the middle. And then these guys, maybe I just pan these out kind of left and right when they come in. See what that sounds like. Just gonna turn that bassy one down just a fraction. Yeah, I like it. Okay. And then I'm going to go over to my backing vocals and find the little section where they turn on. Whoop.
I can't let go.
So this is a bassy one. I'm going to keep it in the middle and I'm going to put these ones out to the sides.
I can't let go.
Yeah, now it's starting to warm up.
I can't let go. I can't let go. I would never let you go. I would never let you go. I would never let you go.
Okay, awesome. Great. We're pretty solid. We still have healthy levels. We've got room to be able to do our mastering processing in 15 minutes. Oh my god, we have so much time. It's great. Okay, so with this session, we've done our mix, right? It's not perfect. There's more things we can do. We could play around with the drums more, but generally it sounds pretty nice. We've done the basic things that we need to do to make it sound okay. I'd probably apply some automation to the lead vocal as well, but let's do the next part. So I'm going to highlight the length of the track. I'm going to hit enter on my numeric keypad, and that's going to bring up a memory location. I'm going to make it a selection, and I'm just going to call it like the length, in caps apparently, of the track. Now with this, what this is going to do is when I hit OK, if I'm clicked anywhere else in my session, if I hit 0.1 point, because it's my first memory location, it will select that highlight, which means I'm ready to bounce. So I'm going to hit Option, Command B, and it's going to bring up this window to create a bounce. Now my session's 44.1, 24, cool. I don't need to create an MP3. Also cool. Import after bounce. Hell yeah, do that, because we're going to master it. So it's going to take a hot second to do this. And then what we're going to do is, normally I would probably set up my mastering chain in a new session, but for speed, we're going to do it in one session. We're just going to hide all this other stuff. And in terms of this mastering, it is basic mastering. It is the version of mastering to get your song loud enough to be able to put it on SoundCloud or YouTube or whatever else. It is not true mastering. Keep that in mind. It will help you out, definitely, but it's not perfect. I'm going to talk through some basic stuff of it. Okay, put this on a new track? Absolutely. So now we have our bounce. Look at that. It's a full session if I solo it.
Just try to pick up the pace.
Now these loud parts.
I would never let you go. I would never let you.
Yep, nothing picks. We're all good. Okay, so now all of these other tracks in my tracks section, I am just going to grab these and I'm going to very delicately say I'm going to hide them and make them inactive so that they disappear forever as far as you're concerned. Now we have this mix. I'm going to show you a couple of stages, and I like to do it in stages for demonstration, sometimes for myself as well, just so that you can actually see what the processing is doing. So Command Shift N, I'm going to create 2 stereo auxiliaries. Well, I didn't press 2. Okay, so we're just going to do that stereo auxiliary again. Great. Awesome. So this one is going to be the EQ and compression stage, and the next one is going to be the limiting stage. Now, the other thing I would recommend is having a reference track that you bring into your session that you can then work alongside to try and set your levels and set the general feel of, and then know whether you need to go back and tweak anything. We're not doing that today. So, okay, we have this. What we need to do is I want this signal to go into this EQ and compressor and then into the limiter and then come out of my speakers. So I need to send this one to an unused bus. Now, at the moment, because all those other tracks have essentially disappeared, I can use those same buses again. If I was doing this all in one session and functioning it at the same time, pick different ones. But for today, this is fine. So bus 1 and 2, it's going out of on this track, and then this one is seeing the signal from bus 1 and 2. So this one's going to go out to bus 3 and 4, another random place, and then it's going to listen to that sound on this final track from bus 3 and 4, and then it's going to come out our speakers. So these 3 tracks should have identical levels when I hit play. Yes, they do. Fantastic. Okay, so what is the processing we apply? 1. Some EQ. Do we want to change the sound and make it sound better? No. If it sounds shitty in the mix, fix your mix, right? This is just to get it cleaned up. For EQing, this is not as important for a digital release. If you were mastering for vinyl, oh my god, super important. If that needle can't move fast enough or is too bassy or whatever else is going on in your mix, it will not cut to record properly. So for analog formats, really, really important. For digital formats, the EQing part is to get it so that we don't have crazy subs or crazy highs that we're not hearing through our headphones. So we're just making sure they don't exist for those tracks that we didn't end up doing any processing to. Or if you're doing things like you're adding high frequencies and things with other plugins, then this is just to tailor everything off. So when I play this back and hit bypass, we shouldn't really hear a difference. Great, I can hear the plugin clicking on a little bit, but that's fine. The next thing is a compressor. Now you're going to say, hey, do we compress this and just like smash it? No, because that's not this compressor's job. See how on this track, there's all these little like pieces that flick up here. We got like this little tiny peak, this peak, that peak, that peak. This compressor's job is to even them out, so that before it hits the limiter, it's going to just control it a little bit and take some of this and make it a bit more even so the limiter can work and not have to worry about like clipping on those really loud sounds. So to do this, this clean limit is a really good place to get started. I saw another YouTuber do this and it worked really, really well. So this basic kind of plugin is actually a really good default setting. You can do it manually, but for the time being, that's totally fine. I would never let you go. All I'm doing is playing with this threshold and bringing it down so that it's hearing and grabbing those loud frequencies and only turning them down by like at a max 3 dBs for just a second. I would never let you go. I would never let you go. I would never let you go. See that loud hit is getting to 3 dBs? That's all we're looking for. That's fine. I'm going to get it so that it holds it for just a fraction longer. I would never let you go. I would never let you go. But this time I gotta go. Great. It's cleaning it up a little bit. Awesome. The next stage is our limiting. And with this, we're nearly done. So with our limiter, Maxim limiter, stock plugin, couple of things. Dither, don't touch it. You don't need it. If you're using limiters on your subgroups, don't turn dither on. Dither is adding extra analog sounding noise into the back of your recording. You don't want that. This is only to kind of mask dodgy things that have happened during like the quantization process. So don't worry about it. That's fine. That's a whole other conversation. You can look at another tutorial on that. The ceiling. How loud is this file going to go? I don't want it to go all the way to 0. I'm going to give it a tiny little bit of headroom, normally between 0.1 and 0.3. You're not going to be able to hear that. It's just so that with the conversion process, it's going to clean it up. Now, if I play this back,
I would never let you go.
you see this is all of the sound coming into this limiter. When I bring this threshold down, if it goes orange, that means it's clipping off that part of the waveform. This is saying that majority of the sound is sitting down here, but there's little flicks that are coming up to this level. I want it to sit just above that. And as I pull this down, my threshold on a compressor, this is a compressor, it's just a different version, I am adding, it's automatically turning that makeup gain back up. So it's just going to get louder when I pull this down.
I would never let you go. I would never let you go. But this time
Cool. Sound pretty tight. The last couple of tiny things, and I think we might run out of time. With my sound field, I'm going to put on Isotope Insight. Now, this is what we would really be paying attention to if you're putting something on Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube. There are different limitations and different expectations in terms of the loudness limits that they expect. It used to be the Wild West. It is not the Wild West anymore, which is a good thing because your mixes will sound better. But we're generally aiming for somewhere between -13 to -14 lufts, which is loudness units full scale.
I would never let you go. I would never let you go. But this time I gotta go.
We're pretty on the money. I would spend more time and listen to the whole song and actually make sure that this is sitting correctly the whole way through, but we don't have time for that. So, oh no, keep the timer there. So this is looking pretty solid, right? The final stages now, what we need to do. I need to export a bounce. I would, if I was going to do this, Option Command B and create a bounce, I would be doing this online so that I'm listening to it the whole way through to make sure that it is bounced correctly, that there's no weird things that I haven't heard, because at no point during this whole song have we listened to it the entire way through. We don't need to. So I'm going to do it offline for terms of speed right now, but this stage, do it online. Give yourself the time to actually listen to it and see whether it sounds right the whole way through, so you can go back and fix it now. Going to hit bounce. It's going to go through that process, and then it's going to re-import it after the bounce, and then we're going to create our final file with that, because at the moment we haven't topped and tailed and trimmed this. So put it on a new track. Oh my god, look at her, she's so fresh. She is going to sit next to this one. We are going to just drag these so you can see the waveform side by side. Look how much she's grown up. Oh my god, she's fabulous. She looks like a whole new woman. Okay, now we need to trim it. So I'm going to go to the start of the track. When do I want it to start? When I hit play. I mean, I like that. I feel like I could almost get rid of the 2 at the start of this. Yeah, that's nicer. So I'm going to hit break, I'm going to get rid of that, and then I am going to zoom right in on here and add a little fade just to the start, not touching that first little part. If you wanted it to fade in, it would be as easy as just putting a bigger fade on. Yeah, we should also listen to it. You could do something fancy like that if you want to. Great, that sounds good. Let's roll all the way down to the end. And how does it end? That's a long tail. I don't want all that. Let's get rid of some of that. Let's put a fade on here. Now, if you just hit F, it will do a normal fade. If you hit Command F, it'll bring up a fade window. And then you can pick what sort of fancy curve you want, which will make it sound more smooth and end quicker, or kind of hold it to the end and then turn off really quickly. Whatever is appropriate for the sounds at the end of your song. I kind of want it to end around here. What's this sound like? I'm going to give it a little more space on that fade. Next song starts. Cool, sounds good. Okay, so these files, if I was to bounce this again, that would give me the correct final file. If I was to export this, which you can do with Command-Shift-K, it will give you the choice of what file type you want. You can also do this with a bounce anyway. But if I was to just export it right now, it would not take it with these fades. So if I want to complete this file, I can consolidate it. You can do it the weird way and go up here and say consolidate clip, or you can say Option-Shift-3 with that clip selected. And now this file is our final ready thing. So I can just export this file. Command-Shift-K. I can export it as a WAV with whatever settings I need it to be. So 1644.1 is ready for a CD. Before I actually do that, if I rename this, so final, master, whatever you want to call it, when I go to export this now, it will export with that correct file name. And at the moment it's going into my 1 hour mix session audio files. This is my 1 hour mix session. I want it to go not into there. What folder is that? 1 hour mix session, bounced files. Put it in there because then it's going to be easy for me to find. And with my MP3 version, yeah, it's a 1 hour mix. You can change it so that it's the artist name, album name, whatever genre you want to call it. And this is the bitrate for the MP3. Higher the better, realistically. Some websites will need you to do it one style or another. If we hit OK, it processes it. And oh my goodness, if we go back to where this session is and our bounced files, oh my god, there's our final master as an MP3. Let's do one as a WAV for safekeeping at 4416. Oh my goodness. Look at them. They live right here. And if I press play, it'll play it out of my computer speakers so we won't hear it properly. But there it is. Living on in happy glory. And look at that. We did it. We took our session, we mixed it, we made it sound fantastic, we mastered it. It is ready to put right up there on SoundCloud, but not this one because it's an educational track and not for commercial use. And it is all done within this time frame. 4, 3, 2, 1. Done. Very good work, everybody. So hopefully this has given you a little bit of an understanding of what is needed. Like I said before, obviously there is a heap of other stuff we could do with this mix. We could play around, we could do some really interesting processing and do some cool things where the vocal is changed for a little section and then comes back, or automating our reverbs and adding some cool delays and doing all kinds of really fun stuff. If I was doing this for a proper release, yeah, I'd probably spend a little bit more than 1 hour on the nose to try and get it done. But if we're moving fast and we're only paying attention to the sounds that actually need fixing, if you've done a good recording in the start or you have good files to work with, that's great. You're kind of 90% of the way there. You just have to polish it up a little bit. So hopefully this has been helpful. Hopefully this has helped you to get a bit of an understanding of my workflow. Obviously, there's a million other workflows out there. But yeah, have a look, check it out. If you got any questions about anything that I went into, or anything you want more detail on, let me know. Happy to make more tutorials. But otherwise, have a fantastic rest of your day. I'll catch you later. Bye.